How's it going, everybody? Over at twitch.tv/Lawler, hanging out with chat and going to be covering some stuff actually a week in advance. We're a little bit ahead of the curve. For those that don't know, CRL World Championships are going down at DreamHack Dallas this weekend, so there is no European Rocket League, but that doesn't mean the lovely Direct, statistician for RLCS, hasn't put together the scenarios for the Spring Major. So for those that do not know, obviously last weekend we got to secure which 5 teams from North America were going to be going to the Spring Major to represent, but we still haven't figured it out for Europe. We had still to get through qualifiers and figure out who the heck was still in competing purposes. We'll be doing predictions tomorrow, so if you guys want to make sure you guys don't miss out on that, subscribe, notifications, you know how it goes. But we've got 12 teams still in the running for Europe. 12 teams. North America, I think, was 11. And it's not just the fact that there's 12 teams in the running, but there's implications for teams like Vitality and stuff like that that determines if they can even make the wild card. There's a lot of things on the line right now, which is the best part about Rocket League, having things that actually matter to look out for. So we're gonna break this down like we did last week. This is what teams need to do in order to make the Spring Major. There's 5 spots available. One of them is gone because BDS built different. They have won back to back. Yeah, it's been exciting. There's too many letters in that. Appreciate the 2-month reset. There is back-to-back wins for BDS. They have taken first place in both. They have swept in their grand finals. A lot of people assuming that they're going to take the third one just like G2 did. Maybe we'll see someone come out of nowhere. Maybe Team Liquid or K-Corp. This will be the one that they surprise. We'll have to wait and see. But BDS has already clinched the spot at the Major. They are A-OK. Pretty much locked in, many of us believe, for 2nd seed overall at the Spring Major. So there is some interesting things, but we have 11 teams, technically 12 teams that are still in the running, and it's going to be pretty cutthroat to see what happens. Some of these teams need big performances because it's been domination towards the top. So with that said, we're going to break these down team by team from most likely to least likely, and then we will have a summation at the very end. Again, massive thank you to Direct RL on Twitter for putting this together. Without him, my brain would be going brr, and I would hate every second of this. So without him, this would not be possible. So a couple things to pay attention to as we transition to the other screen. First things first, these are the results. These are the seeds. This is everybody that is still in the running, unless they're in red. Red means bye-bye. So you've got these teams. That's how we get our 12. We've got 12 teams still in the running. Those teams are Moist, Liquid, K-Corp, Solary, Vitality, SMPR, Endpoint, Luminosity, Misfits, Dignitas, EG, and Guild. We're going to start with Moist and then go down the line from next to next. So Moist Esports, that's who's up first. What does Moist need to do? Top 6. They're just like version 1 last week. They get top 6. They win their first 2 series. They go 2-0 on day 1 on Friday. They're good. They're good. Don't forget, not this Friday, next Friday. This weekend is DreamHack. We've got CRL World Champs. There will be still SSA region, SAM, and APAC North, I'm pretty sure, competing. APAC North has got some pretty cool implications. If you guys want to know more about that, come by the stream. I'll tell you guys about it. So for Moist, top 5, top 6. That's 2 wins, getting into the upper semifinals. Upper semifinals, I think it is. Upper quarterfinals. 16, 8, upper semifinals will be good to go. If they lose 1 match and win 2 matches, which is top 8, then they need one more thing to happen. Again, if you guys are ever unsure about these, you read the scenario based upon their placement. So if we pull up a bracket to give you guys an idea, if we go to Europe hasn't had their bracket filled out yet for their scenarios for Regional 3 for some reason. They just haven't updated it. We have the scenarios, who's playing, all that kind of stuff already. Again, we'll discuss this in tomorrow's video. But this is top 6. This is 8. This is 12. This is 16 to 13. So what you'll do is, if you click through all your pages, you go to this one, 7 to 8. So you go here. If they get here, you're good. Once they get there, then you need one of these things to happen. And then you just kind of check them off. Direct will do these live as they happen. Or I'll probably do watch party stuff for them. So stop by the stream and I'll try to answer them for you. You can always update them and follow them along. But you're looking at the scenario and then just going from there. Pretty straightforward. Even if they go 0-2, like say Moist goes 0-2, they need 5 of these things to happen. It seems pretty likely. Like, I don't think Misfits is going to win. Luminosity, potential. Endpoint, maybe surprises with top 3. SMPR, probably not going to finish 3rd. Vitality, potential. This seems more likely. But you're basically looking at 4 scenarios that are pretty confident, and then 1 off. So yeah, there's some pretty big potential that you can do. There's some pretty big potential you can do. Next, Liquid. Liquid scenarios. Needs top 3. Top 3. They're going here. Top 3 is what they're looking like. Okay? That is to make sure that they are not asking for anybody else's help. Understand that a lot of these, when you talk about the very top scenario, is just like, if we get here, it doesn't matter what other people do, we're fine. That's what they're looking for. If they do get 4th tier, lower semifinals, they need one more thing to happen. Vitality not winning. For a lot of teams, Vitality not winning is important because if you look at the actual rankings for Spring for Europe, they basically need the teams that are here to stay away. That's the easiest way to explain it. They need teams that are on the cusp to not break in. And because Moist has such a buffer, they're pretty much solid. The other side of things, though, is if the teams down here start bopping people out, there's no way they can catch up. So as long as Moist, they control their own fate, essentially. Which, has Moist ever not finished in the top? So you should be fine. I do not expect Moist to go 0-2. So they should be good. With Liquid, that's what we just talked about. They're pretty much solidified as well. Similar regards. If you look at their standings with where they're at, only 70 points behind. You get a guaranteed 80 for just being there. So as long as they create a little bit of a buffer, they should be all right. But there is some circumstances where things get pretty spicy. If they go out, if they go 1-2, so if they only win 1 series and they finish 9th to 12th, things look a little bit tougher for them. Because if they're out early, that means potential of other teams taking their spots. You assume who those teams would be, like the Luminosities, the Dignitases, etc. There should be some pretty interesting things. So for Team Liquid, looking pretty solid, but as long as they stay out of their heads, they still play consistent, the fast, aggressive playstyle that we've seen them do. They finished 2nd last regional. I expect them to be a top 6, more likely in here, and I do not foresee Endpoint or SMPR or Vitality winning. So they should be okay, but we'll have to wait and see. You never know with Europe. It's a dartboard of predictions. I don't know how the heck I'm going to do mine for tomorrow. We'll see. Up next, we've got K-Corp. K-Corp's a little bit more interesting because they're also in a similar regard points-wise, right? K-Corp is just behind Team Liquid, so there's a couple scenarios where they need the teams below them to perform a little bit worse. But primarily, if they get also top 3 is going to guarantee them 300 points, I think it is. The 350, I think, is for 2nd, so 300 points. That is enough to put them in the threshold of, hey, you're going to make it. So top 3 is what they're hoping for, getting to the loser final. And from there, if they do not and they get 4th, they need 2 scenarios to help. This is where it starts to make that transition away from like Moist and Liquid, where Liquid and Moist only need 1 scenario. K-Corp needs 2 because that 20-point difference gap can be made up. So again, similar regards, teams right below them need to perform worse than them. And then the other ones like Moist or Liquid, they could leapfrog if they have a really solid performance, which is just a seeding thing. Still means Moist and Liquid are probably going to make it there. But realistically, you're expecting them, if they do look for like a top 4, top 6, I think is kind of like the base level for them. They need the teams directly below them, your SMPR Endpoints, Vitalities, Solaries, to fall off. Their best case scenario is like EG Guilds start popping off, but not too much. Again, control your own fate, win your matches. That's the biggest one. But again, here's your scenarios for all of those. If they do perform worst, right? Say they go 0-2. They get knocked out. They drop first series, go to lowers, drop again. 8 scenarios that they need help with. There's only 9 of them. There's only 9 scenarios. They can have one thing not happen. That's pretty tough. So they need to, in my opinion, they need to get at least 7th, 8th. They need to at least get here in the bracket. Low round 3, if they don't get there, I think they're in a pretty tough spot. So top 6, I feel like you can be pretty confident in K-Corp. If they don't, little spooky. It's only going to get more difficult from there. Solary, a lot of teams have been excited about their wins. They also have some pretty big tiebreaker scenarios and a lot of scenarios in general that need help. Direct, while talking to him about this, was just like, Europe, what the heck? Why are so many people allowed to still be in this? Ironically enough, I think it was last split or the split before? there was 16 teams, or 15 or 16 teams in Europe that were still in the running. This regional, like I mentioned, or this split, I should say, it's only 12. So, like, it's getting better. You're starting to see the top of Europe be a little bit more consistent, which is kind of crazy considering how we've seen predictions go. So, Solary, if they win, they get 401 points. That'll guarantee them enough to be up at the top. That'll put them at 900, well, not 900, whatever 911 minus 80 is, but that'll put them enough in the threshold so they'll be solid. So, that is what they are looking for if they get a win. Winning the whole thing clinches. No tiebreaker scenarios, nothing they got to worry about if they just win. If they take second, they make the grand finals and lose. Many people assume that BDS will be in that grand final and will sweep the competition if they make it to the grand finals again. 831. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate you. But yes, just win 4-head is kind of the scenario for Solary. But if they do go to the grand finals and lose, the big one, Vitality just can't be the ones that beat them. I feel like that's pretty likely. So if they get second, they should also probably be in. So Solary's chances, if they place top 2, pretty dang good. If they get third, 3 or more. If they get third, which I do think is possible, I'm pretty sure they were top 4 in Regional 1. I'd have to go back and look at the exact. A lot of Rocket League's been going on, but they need some help. They need some of the top teams like Team Liquid, or Tema Liquid. Team Liquid, a little bit of a whoopsie there by Direct as he's typing all these in. K Corp and stuff needs a little bit of help. These ones are more likely than these. Again, needs the teams right below them to go on out. They got third. Okay, it was top 3. So if they have a repeat of Regional 1 and they do well, I do assume I would have to assume it's likely that teams like Liquid, Moist, BDS, and stuff are probably ahead of them. K Corp potentially, stuff like that. So I could see these things not becoming true. These things do. I could possibly even see this. I could see K Corp going 5-6. I mean, Liquid could possibly go 7-8 again, like they did in the first regional. We'll see. Top 3, I think they're in a pretty good spirits. Top 3. What gets crazy is when the tiebreakers start to come in. So if they end up getting into these situations, right? They go 4th, 5th, which is here. Okay. If they go 4th, tiebreaker scenarios become a possibility. And that's why they say 5 or more. Because if it is, it's a really weird circumstance. But if Moist finishes last, if they go 0-2, it then creates a tiebreaker scenario. So you can basically like take this out of your brain, but this is kind of like one of those weird one-off scenarios, right? But this is one of those where you're watching and all of a sudden you see the crazy upset. Okay, oh my God, Moist is finishing 13th to 16th. They go 0-2. Oh my God, what happens? Then you can see a little bit of a scenario where less things need to happen. So there is some, like, again, asterisks that open up some possibilities, but it is kind of a weird scenario. Don't forget, all these teams will be timestamped down below so you can jump ahead to where you need to go. So they get more and more complicated. They have a lot of different scenarios that they can play through just because of where they're at. But you're talking, if they do poorly, they need all of these to happen. If they go last, they can get a tiebreaker and need all of these things to happen. It is not an or. It is not a one or the other. It's not a couple. It is these things have to happen this way. Again, it's some dream scenarios. That is a worst case scenario. If you're a Solary fan and you're like, shoot, we finished 1 and 2 and we got knocked out early, boy, do we need some help. And all of these things have to happen. Every single one. So count your lucky stars. All right, up to Vitality. These are only going to get more complicated. Very similar, actually, to Solary. Vitality and Solary are kind of in the same boat. Clinch with a win. A lot of people hoping for that Redos and Magic. They can clinch with a win. If they take second, they need 3 more to happen. You're kind of banking on the same ones. SMPR, Endpoint, and then hoping that Solary finish 4th or worse, which could be likely. Same thing with K Corp finishing 5th, 6th. You never know. And then it goes very similar. The difference, though, is where it says Solary here is where it said Vitality on the other page. Very, very big similarities between Vitality and Solary due to that first regional. In Regional 1, the reason why it's so similar is because of this. And then if you go to Regional 2, you'll get where Vitality went out. Look at Solary where they went out. Big same. So the difference maker between those two teams is literally when Solary leapfrogged them. Those 50 points. That's the difference. So very, very close. These two are pretty much competing head to head. Should be a fun to watch both. If you're a fan of either one of those, you're rooting for against the other one. But then you got Semper that's only 20 points behind, and then Endpoints that's 20 points behind that, 30 points. Europe go burr. It's stupid. It's so complicated for some of these. Again, Direct, thank you for everything you do. Up to Semper. Semper, like I said, only 30 points behind. Their situation's a little bit more difficult because of that skill gap. When you go from placement to placement, the further you get in the tournament, the more points you get allocated, because there's less teams that can get those points. So like here, the jump from here to here is worth more than from here to here. So there is certain stages that award more. So those things are kind of to keep in mind. That's why Sempers are a little bit more complicated because of the point makeup that they have to have. Even if they win the whole thing, they still need help. And the help that they need is basically the teams above them need to perform bad, just so that they have a chance to bump up. So if they win the whole thing, they need Moist to only get 1 win. Liquid can only get technically 2 wins. K-Corp can get 3. And then Solary can get 4. That's the help. And it only gets more complicated from there. So if they finish second, they go to the grand finals and lose. That 51-point bump is very important, especially that 1 extra point, because it puts them over the threshold for a lot of teams. But they need 4 of these to happen. I think it's likely that Endpoint, Vitality, and Luminosity do not win. From there, they need just an upset. But the desire that Moist doesn't win a single series, not the hope I'm going to put my allocation into. And then let me show you guys the impossible scenarios. Also, the big thing that's starting to break out now, if they do not get past the 9th to 12th stage, if they do not get top 8, they are done. If they do not go here, they're done in the bracket. If they finish here, they're out. So we have elimination scenarios coming into play now. So at minimum, top 8. Top 8 and a lot of help. So much help. They need 8 scenarios to go in their favor. Pretty scary stuff. Same thing applies to top 6. 8 scenarios in their favor. Next, we go to Endpoint. This is the team that has a very unique situation because they're borrowing Archie from Semper. And they've actually been looking pretty decent with him. A lot of people were unsure how this one was going to play out. And there's some big moments from Endpoint that I've actually been enjoying. So, with that said, even if they win the whole thing, the whole shebang, Endpoint takes it, teams above them need to bump out so there can be space for them. Same as all these other ones. Very similar. Similar regard as well to what we just saw. If they do not make lower round 3, they are done. They are no longer in contention. It is over. They still need 8 scenarios for them as well. When you're talking about top 6 and top 8, and even when you get into 4th, if they finish 4th, they need, out of 9 scenarios, 8 of them to happen. And the big one that's pretty crazy, if K-Corp ends up going 0-2, they have their own unique tiebreaker scenario with Endpoint K-Corp, if things go in their favor. Because not only do they need that, then they need all these other crazy things to happen too. So out of 9 scenarios, pretty crazy stuff. They do get a glimmer of hope, and even if they do, they still may have to play a tiebreaker. Pretty wild stuff. So pretty tough one here for Endpoint. We're going to probably see some new faces at the Spring Major. We talked about in a video a while ago how Liquid could be playing some pretty big spoiler and gatekeeping a lot of teams, and it looks like they're doing just that. Looks like Liquid's probably going to take one of the spots. Knock on wood. Up next, Luminosity. Dodging BDS this time. If you guys haven't seen the playoff bracket, BDS, lower side of the bracket. Luminosity doesn't have to play them till upper semifinals, if they do. Not playing them immediately in the quarterfinals. A little bit of a dodge. We'll see how that goes. Jokes aside, Luminosity needs a lot of help. Need to win, and two scenarios out of these. Again, all the teams that are kind of in that conversation of 2 to 6, 2 to 7, they need help. They need 2 things to happen, and those teams, obviously, the higher up they are, the worse they need to do. You're basically hoping for these. If they get second, 6 out of 8. 6 out of 8 scenarios. They get third, 8 out of 10 scenarios. 8 out of 10 scenarios. Big one set on a precedent with Team Liquid so they can play a tiebreaker. Just like what we saw with Endpoint, they are having to get a tiebreaker with a more difficult team. While Endpoint gets to play, if they do K-Corp, Luminosity would have to play Team Liquid for their tiebreaker. Pretty crazy stuff. And then if they get 4th, top 4, again, if you guys don't know where that is in the bracket, top 4 is here, lower semifinals. And then they need 8 scenarios in their favor. If they get 5th to 6th, 8 scenarios as well. So 5-6 again is here. This is if they go 2-0 and then lose 2. So 2-2. The scary thing though is if they get top 8. So if they go here in lower round 3, they're done. They say goodbye. So Luminosity, that's a pretty tough go for them based upon their placements in the past. That's pretty tough. Again, in order for them to have a chance, a lot of teams are at the point where unless you have the, you know, your strongest teams, right? Your strongest teams that are going to be in your top 6, unless you can play upset, like this round in Europe is brutal. It is so grueling cutting from 9-12 to 8-6. Like these rounds in Europe they're excruciating. They really are. Luminosity's got to get that upset. Like they have to win that really tough match that pushes them into top 6. Because if they can get through that, then I think they have the confidence to push through. I really do. Do I think they're going to be top 6 in the EU? Probably not. Do I think there's potential? Without a doubt. So we'll see how it goes. If they finish 7th, 8th, which is lower round 3, done. They're out. Misfits, tattoo on the line. Cosma in chat says if they win and they make the major, he's getting a Misfits logo tattoo. Which, what happens if the team is no longer with Misfits in the future? Then we just have a really funny scenario and we point and laugh. Betting for tattoos, not a thing I would do. Not a thing I would do. That said, they need to win and they need 3 scenarios to help them. So I'm going to give you polar opposites. If Misfits does not make top 4, if Misfits is not in this game, they're eliminated. Okay? If Misfits does not make the lower semifinals, they are eliminated. Top 6. So if they go to day 1, it's Friday. They go 2-0. They beat their first 2 competitions. Everybody's on a high. Misfits is clutch. Cash is playing out of his mind. Things are vibing. Cosma's a little bit nervous because they're like, uh-oh, they're guaranteed top 6. What's happening? Is this the Misfits hype train? They get to day 2, they lose. They drop down to lower quarterfinals. They lose again. They get eliminated. You know what? Top 6, that's pretty hype. We did good. Still not good enough. So they need a ton of help. Again, 8 scenarios, 9 scenarios. They need at least 8 for top 3. And if K Corp goes 0-2, then they get a tiebreaker scenario. Just like I think Luminosity had Endpoint. Endpoint and K Corp also had that tiebreaker scenario. Misfits also has that potential. If and only if K Corp goes 0-2. So pretty crazy stuff. But again, as a reiteration, find where they place. Try to follow along. If it no longer becomes a thing, then you just follow along and check these off as they happen. So some of these you're not going to find out until either the team gets eliminated or until the event is over. I will have a link to this document in the description down below. While you're down there, consider hitting like, subscribe, notifications. It's greatly appreciated. Up next, Dignitas. This is probably one of the biggest surprises. They're right now sitting 11th overall. This is a team that has had a lot of really solid performances, but it also puts into perspective how tough Dignitas has had it this regional and this split. Spring split has not gone well for Dig. A lot of external circumstances, a lot of frustrations they're dealing with. You feel for the boys, but same with them. They need, just like Misfits, top 4. They got to get to lower semifinals minimum. And if they do, then they need a ton of help. Again, 8 scenarios for them in both 4th and 3rd place. If they do take 2nd, this is how tough it is for Dignitas. If they place 2nd place, they go to the grand final and lose. They can have 8 out of 10 scenarios happen, and one of those is Team Liquid going 0-2. And if that happens, then they still have to play a tiebreaker with Team Liquid. Guild can't win. EG can't win. Misfits can't win. Which, again, if Dignitas makes the grand final, say we have the craziest script ever and Dignitas pulls something out of their butts and they make the grand finals, it's very likely that Guild, EG, Misfits aren't winning. Luminosity, I don't know who the heck Dignitas is beating to get to this point. So you can assume like maybe 6 or 7 scenarios are happening and they're going to need one more special one, like Solary going 1-2 or K Corp going 0-2. Like, it's going to be tough for Dignitas. It's going to be very tough for Dignitas. Dream scenario, ironically, dream scenario is they play one of these teams in the grand finals and win. Straight up. Dream scenario, because if these teams are in the grand finals, that means a lot of these teams have been knocked out. So, like, you're basically trying to have 2 teams that are, like, basically out of the running, make it to the grand finals, and knock everybody else out in the way. Whether that's going to happen or not, we'll wait and see. Pretty crazy stuff. So, some pretty insane scenarios for Dig. If we look at Evil Geniuses, also very, very tough. EG, a team that showed so much consistency, just difficulty against the top tier. They're like, what, 2-13 or something? I forget what the stat is. I'd have to look it up again, but EG a really tough time against teams that are in the top 4, top 5. That's kind of where their struggle has been. So it's weird to see them have such a dip this split in particular, with Team Liquid, K Corp roster change having a really big impact. Endpoint SMPR still stabilizing. It's been pretty wild for EG after their consistency for as long as it has been. But you see the difference here, and they need a ton of help. The biggest one for EG is top 4 or worse eliminates them. We talked about how for like Misfits and all that stuff, if they don't make it to this match, they get eliminated. So like if they're here, they get eliminated. It's one step worse for EG. They got to make top 3. They have to get here. They have to go to the lower bracket final. If they don't, they're out. The next part is where it gets complicated. Scenarios wise, out of 8 scenarios, they need 6 of them if they win. So like we saw the contrast with Moist or like Solary, right? Like if Solary wins, they're good. For EG, if they win, they still need 6 things to happen. And those 6 things are not easy. It's actually pretty tough. Very tough. So out of 8 scenarios, they need 6 to clinch it with a win. And you're talking like Liquid K Corp got to go last 0-2. Like those are the 2 things that probably won't happen. So you're looking at these things, right? Misfits, 3rd or worse. Luminosity, 3rd or worse. Endpoint, 4th or worse. SMPR, 4th or worse. Vitality, only top 6. Solary, only top 8. This is probably going to be the toughest one. Having Solary only go top 8, you're hoping. You need Solary to go 1 and 2. That's a pretty tough one. So if you're Evil Geniuses, I would pay attention to Solary. That's probably the big one I would pay attention to. That's kind of your decision. If Solary makes top 8, you have a chance, but is it going to happen? You're going to need a lot of help. So we'll see. We'll see with EG. And the last one, Guild, also in a very tough scenario. Very similar, actually, to EG. Again, they have to make top 3. Have to make top 3, which is here. They've got to make lower bracket final, just like EG. And they need help. Similar regard, Solary. Solary is the one to pay attention to. That's your decider. You also have 8 scenarios. You need 6 to happen. Liquid K Corp going last place. Probably not going to happen. So Solary, top 8. If they go top 8, you're still in the running, but you need help. You better be hoping you're knocking some people out. So pretty tough things. That's what we got. If you guys want a quick TLDR, this is the final recap of all of them. This is what we're looking on the side. If you're Moist, top 6, you're good. If you're Team Liquid or K Corp, top 3, you're good. Solary and Vitality clinch with a win. If they win the whole thing, they're in. SMPR and Endpoint, if they go 1 and 2, they are out. If you're Luminosity, if you do not get 1 round past that, so 2 and 2, you're out. Misfits, Dignitas, you got to make at least top 6. If you do that, you're still out. You got to make at least top 4. Top 4 minimum for Misfits and Dignitas. And if you're EG and Guild, top 3 minimum with a whole lot of help. That is tough. D-Rex summarizes it pretty well. Flipping tables. With that said, that is your EU playoff scenarios for the Spring Major. Regional 3, not this weekend. It will be the weekend after. These will all be timestamped for each team. If you guys have any additional questions, comments, concerns, 2 ways to do it. Number 1, comment down below. Number 2, stop by the stream. Twitch.tv/Lawler. We stream every day but Tuesday and Sunday. Come ask questions. I will leave a link to this document in the description. Otherwise, you can always just go check the timestamps, pull up your team, follow along. Makes it nice and easy. You will also see Direct update these live if he is able to. And the scenarios will turn either red if they did not happen or green if it's good to go. These happen live during the tournament. So keep that in mind. But any questions, stuff like that, feel free to come ask. That is going to do it for today's video. Appreciate you guys all taking the time. If you guys enjoy this type of content, as always, which if you guys have made it this far, hopefully you do, give the video a thumbs up, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, trying to hit 50K by the end of the year. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.